So welcome. It's Thursday and it's noon again, and that means we are back for another installment in my series of the singles. And today we're going to be learning about an essential oil that is really supportive to very many body systems. I think there's a lot of people logging in on Insta and IGE today, so welcome. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to be taking some notes today, because I can see that the comments that people put through when they want a recipe, for example, on IGE, don't show after the live is finished, so then I'll never know who to reply to. So I'm going to fix that today. I'll be taking notes. So I can see Essential Daily Drops has joined. Fantastic. Welcome. Also, Lullabags and Shandi Panda Bear. Shandi Panda Bear. That's quite cute. Let us know what your real names are when you're managing these pages, please, because then I'll give you a shout out as well. Alina Porn, welcome. You're on Facebook, so we are going to be teaching you about a beautiful oil today. Zahira's also just logged in, so brilliant. Thank you so much. Remember, if you want me to give you a shout out, just go put something in the comments so I can see you've logged in. Especially if you're coming in from a business page or a group page name, so that I can actually know who you really are. Oh, so there we go. Lullabags is actually Julie, so welcome, Julie. I'm also going to be writing that down because IGE is not going to show me that. So I'll know for future, so that's really awesome. So welcome, it's Thursday. We're going to see how many people we can get on today, and I think, oh, there we go, Shandi Panda Bear is Chandra. Welcome. So good to have you on, learning about a really beautiful essential oil today. I know Shelly said she'll log in too because this is one of her favorite oils. Today we're going to be talking about liquid stitches, and it's an odd term. But as soon as you start looking into the chemical constituents of this beautiful essential oil, you will learn how awesome this oil is and why we're calling it liquid stitches. Oh, there we go. Rina is from Essential Daily Drops. Fantastic. Thank you for joining. So I will be taking notes for all of you, seeing I'm writing things down. I'm not spying on you. It's simply so that I can actually respond to my people joining in on Instagram, on IGE, because for some reason those comments just go absolutely missing after the live has ended. Not on Facebook, so carry on putting in the comments the normal way in Facebook. So yes, there'll be a lot of recipes mentioned today, especially the oils that you can use to support. So get your fingers ready, please, to type in the comments when I say a certain word if you're looking for that recipe in the drop amount, because I'll just be mentioning the oils today instead of the full recipe. So let's get started. Today is Helichrysum, and I actually had a little bit of a tear this morning when I actually realized today I'm talking about an oil that plays an incredible important role not only in my family but also emotionally, because it's the everlasting flower. And if we think about the word everlasting, we always want things to last forever, whether it be our beauty, whether it be our skin, whether it be people around us, whether it be our animals. And I've had a little bit of a tough time in the last week or so. My kitty cat is not doing so well. He is 13 now, and he's a big cat. We adopted him from Angola. So, you know, he knows what it is to live in the slums, but he is the most lovable, amazing cat. And unfortunately, he started getting ill. And then it sets in that what are you going to do when this cat does not last forever? You know, it's a whole emotional turmoil that you're going through when you start looking after elderly cats, elderly animals, elderly people, and it sets sort of an emotional sort of turmoil in motion that you need to deal with and that you need to process and to be able to take the most informed decisions. So this morning when I woke up and my cat decided for the first time in more than a week that he wanted solid food again, it was incredible because it's been incredibly stressful the last week. Trying to feed him some soup in bed where he was lying. He wasn't even strong enough to get up. So yes, at least the everlasting will carry on a little bit longer, especially for my cat. So if any of you are really like serious animal lovers, please say whatever you need to say for poor Sanchez, so that he gets well and that he lasts a little bit longer. So awesome that we're talking about this beautiful oil today. I mean, I planned this last week already, and as I always say, it's funny how the universe works. Hello, Liesel. I can see you've just logged in. Welcome, welcome. Sending good wishes to my cat Sanchez. Really appreciate that. Thank you. It's my ginger. You'll see him. He's on Instagram and Facebook. He's just one of my kids, so I really, really love him. Cool, so let's talk about Helichrysum today. I can see there's a lot more people that have logged in. If you want to shout out, please remember to go and put your name in there. I can also see Cheryl Ross has just joined. So let's talk about Helichrysum, because I think there's a little bit of confusion about this beautiful plant. I mean, if we look at what the words means, so heli is basically coming from helo, which means sun, and chrysum, which is gold, and this is golden sun. It's like a grey sort of hairy plant with a flower at the top, which lasts a very long time. It's when I grew up as a child, you know, when your mom used to make these dried flower sort of arrangements. You know, there's Helichrysum in there, generally the yellow golden sunshine ones. They've got a funny smell to them. I'm going to teach you today why they have a funny smell. It's because of some of the chemical constituents. But I think let's not, you know, get a little bit confused, because there's a lot of different Helichrysum species out there. So the one we're talking about today is Helichrysum italicum, and this one only comes in the Mediterranean areas. That's where it's growing natively. South Africa has a lot of Helichrysum. We actually have more than 245 different Helichrysum species in South Africa. And although some of them have been scientifically tested to see what their properties are and how they can support using the essential oils, there's actually very few of all of these Helichrysum species that produce essential oil, number one. So when we're talking about the Helichrysum essential oil, generally we're speaking about everlasting. It's also called immortal, and that specifically is the species of Helichrysum italicum. So the things I'm mentioning today are based on that species of plant. Although some of the other Helichrysum species may share some of the chemical constituents and they may have some of the beneficial support, they won't have all of them, because they all differ quite drastically when you look between the different Helichrysum species and their chemical constituents. And obviously the supporting benefits from essential oils come from the chemical constituents. So if those vary between species, you're also going to have varying supports for different parts of the body. So just always make sure you're using the one that you intended to use for that specific purpose. All right, so one of the South African species, for example, is Helichrysum camosum. And this one is incredibly effective because of its antibacterial properties against specific, we call them opportunistic pathogens. So these are bacteria that generally colonize the body anyway, whether it's on the skin or inside the body. But when your immune system is low, then they become opportunistic and they take over, and actually they cause quite a lot of harm. So the South African species was quite effective against 4 of those species. I'm just going to mention them for those of you that are the science fundies like I am. So very good antibacterial properties, supporting against things like Bacillus cereus. And if you're anything from the food safety industry, Bacillus cereus is serious. It's the one that's not so good for you. It's a foodborne pathogen. Staphylococcus aureus, which is generally a good organism on our skins, but again, when our immune systems is down, when we have a parasitic infection, for example, when we've got broken open wounds and our immune system's not good, and when your microbial balance on your skin is not where it should be, then they take over, and they can actually cause a secondary bacterial infection in your skin. Also see Marlies Lefinis just joined. Welcome, welcome. You're on IGE. So yes, we're talking about Helichrysum. So there we go. That's one of the South African species. But when we start looking specifically at Italicum, which is the one I'm talking about today, it comes from the Mediterranean regions. All right. So the Mediterranean region, Italicum, is usually the one that is very sought after, especially in the beauty industry, because of the liquid stitches, which we'll get into, but also because of the regenerating properties and the ability of this oil to support, let's call it anti-bruising. Yes, there we go. That's a good word to use. A Tanya term there, unscientific term, anti-bruising. I can also see Beverly is just logged in. Welcome, welcome. And I can see Zahira is logging in and out and in and out. I suppose your internet's not doing so well today. Please remember, if you miss any of the live, you can always go and catch the replay on my YouTube channel. If you don't know the link for that yet, the more subscribers I have in future, I can actually call it Botanically. At the moment, it's just a number, but I need 500 subscriptions. So please feel free to share as much as you want so that people can subscribe. But at this stage, if you don't know what that link is, just also send me a comment so that I can get that link to you so you can go and watch the replay there. So the Helichrysum species has got a very high ornamental value. As I said, jou oma of jou ma se gedroogde blommerangskikkings. And for those of you logging in from the UK that have no idea what I just said, I was talking about those dried flower arrangements. So it has got ornamental value because there's not a lot of moisture in the flower itself, and that's why it lasts very long when you have it in such an arrangement. And of course, because there's not that much fluid, the essential oil content is also quite low. So you do need to harvest a lot of plant material to be able to get this very pure and precious essential oil. Also makes it a little bit more costly to purchase. But as we start going through the science, you'll understand now why it is such a precious oil, and definitely something that you should have in your first aid kit at home, because it's going to last you a long time. It's also going to be everlasting, hopefully, but it's going to give everlasting support as well. All right, so let's look at where we basically get our Helichrysum from. So usually if you're doing the Helichrysum one, which is the everlasting, it comes from the Mediterranean region, as I said. And my favorite essential oil companies comes actually from Corsica, France. And this is where the original Immortelle was actually sort of, I'm not going to say discovered, but where they started using it in a medicinal format. All right, and the thing about Helichrysum is it's not only good for circulatory support, integumentary support, your skin, but also incredible emotionally as well. So let's start getting into some of those things, because the reason why everlasting or Helichrysum metallicum is so amazing is because of the chemical constituents that are in there that is not found in any other essential oil. So there is no replacement. So, you know, when we usually say, okay, you want to make a recipe and you, for example, want lavender in there because of the calming, then if you don't have lavender, it's usually the linalool oil. So then you could probably reach for something like a clary calm or clary sage, for example, or a basil, because they're both high in linalool oil and you'll get the same calming properties. Not with Helichrysum. There are no other essential oils that have the chemical constituents that Helichrysum italicum have. So if those are the properties you're after, you are going to have to get this essential oil into your repertoire at home quite soon. I can see some likes and hearts coming up there. I guess you liked what I just said there. Fantastic. So let's look at some of these chemical constituents. And the two that are in the italicum at the highest concentration are neryl acetate, which is a ester, and then italidione, right? That is a ketone. So if I can just quickly remind you what the esters do. So esters aromatically are usually very relaxing, soothing, balancing, grounding. Topically, they're really well known for rejuvenating the skin, to soothe the tissues, to protect against certain environmental threats. So topically here, the antibacterial properties start playing a really good role, especially when you start looking at wound healing, but because generally wounds heal with scarring when they've become infected. And when you've got an essential oil that has got the property of cell regeneration and the liquid stitches in combination with a really good antibacterial property, you can understand why the scarring is then something that you would need to support with a beautiful essential oil like Helichrysum. And those of you that have got a food grade essential oil from Helichrysum metallicum, when you use them internally, usually this is a case by case, so it depends on the essential oil, but basically they support the cardiovascular system, for example, the immune system, the nervous system, and even the digestive system. When we look at the ketones, so here it's the italidione, which is in no other essential oil, then the ketones are usually aromatically very energizing. So you've got a calming yet very energizing essential oil when you put the Helichrysum into a diffuser. Very grounding. And certain ketones are also really good at supporting feelings of open airways, and that's why the respiratory system is really supported very well from using Helichrysum. Topically, they have repellent properties. That's the one. You're going to have a love-hate relationship with the smell of Helichrysum. Topically, they have repelling properties for insects, for example, and they may help the skin to look clean and clear and very radiant. All right. So the thing about those ketones in Helichrysum, it's not only the etallidone, it's actually got a small percentage of the beta diketone in there as well. Very distinct smells. They actually call Helichrysum, the whole group of plants, they're actually called curry plants. So they've got a very strong smell. And it's what the ketones, it's those ketones that I've just mentioned that actually give Helichrysum its distinct smell. And you're either going to really have an absolute love affair with that smell, or you're not going to like it at all, unfortunately. But it's got a really strong fragrance to it. So a little bit curry-like. Maybe now that you've heard that it's curry-like, you might associate it more with food, and it won't be as repelling to you as it is to insects. I've also seen that Alka's Beauty is just logged in. Alka is all the way from the Netherlands, so welcome, welcome. I'm pretty sure Alka uses Helichrysum all the time because she's got a beauty salon that uses quite a lot of organic and natural products. So definitely going to be one on her list that she's using, I'm sure. All right, so let's start looking into the properties of the ketones specifically, because what they actually do, that the word is such a tongue twister, the etallidone, what it actually gives the Helichrysum is anti-bruising benefits. So here, start thinking when you've hit your leg against the bed, or when you've fallen, for example, all that blood that coagulates and makes that very nasty blue sort of mark on your skin, that's because the blood is now accumulated and pooled there. And what these ketones do is they actually help the blood to move back into the tissues and to not pool as much, all right? And therefore, the appearance of the bruising looks a lot better, a lot sooner. How amazing is that? I think that's awesome. So it's got anticoagulant properties as well. And the reason we call Helichrysum liquid stitches, it's one of those essential oils that you can actually use neat. You shouldn't be using it every single day for the next year, for example, because it's going to have a blood thinning effect on you. But definitely something that you can use acutely when you, for example, have a cut. Oh, look, Catherine's just logged in as well. Hello, Catherine. Helichrysum is also one of her favorites because it's in a blend that she uses quite nicely for skin blemishes and discoloration. So the Helichrysum itself is really good when you've got that pooling blood. So here you can even start thinking about those unsightly veins that you have, for example, on your legs, near your knee area or your upper thigh area. And there's some really good other essential oils that you can combine with Helichrysum, which you can then use to improve the appearance. All right, so if you're looking to find, I mean, you can use Helichrysum on its own, or you can use it in combination, for example, with geranium and lavender. That's what I also really like using. Remember, I'm really clumsy. I walk into things all the time. And I'm also an O positive blood type, so that means my blood is thinner than all other blood types. It does mean that I bruise a lot easier than the other types. I don't feel that hurt. Maybe I do. My husband says I'm quite sensitive. But definitely the bruising is a bigger issue for people with O positive or with O blood types in general. So if you are someone that is needing a really nice recipe to use when you walk into the bed as often as I do, so that mark on your leg, on your shin, doesn't last for the next 20 years, please in the comments go now and type in bruise, and then I will send you that recipe. But basically what it contains is Helichrysum, lavender, which is really anti-inflammatory and also cell regenerating, cypress, which is really good to increase circulation, lemongrass, which is really good for tissue that has been hurt, and then also geranium. So if you want the exact drops of how to go and put those things together, just go into the comments and go and type in their bruise, and then I'll be sending you that recipe. It works really, really, really well. All right, so I can see some bruises coming through on Facebook. At least Facebook will remind me who asked. If you're going to come through on IGE, the Instagram, then obviously I'll be sending that to you afterwards. I'm just going to take a note of your name so I can get that recipe to you. All right, so let's now start looking into some of the other beautiful benefits, because it is really, really good for the skin. So respiratory wise, exceptional, emotional, we'll get into that in a bit. But basically everyone, essential daily drops, she also wants it. And lullabags, there we go. They all want the bruising recipe as well. So basically, because of those chemical constituents that are in there, we can sort of see Helichrysum as being a first aid for your body when you've got cuts and when you've got gashes or a tear or a break of some sort. And this is one of the oils that you can use neat. So say, for example, you've cut yourself, and my husband actually did this about a week and a half ago. He was working on one of the cars, and he gashed his, or was it 2 weeks ago? I forget now, sorry. But he sort of had a really deep gash with a saw in his thumb, and obviously it popped open. And I'm not a blood person. That's probably why I didn't go and study medicine. I went the science route so that I wouldn't have to see the open gashing wounds and the blood's like spurting out. But literally, I just took my Helichrysum and I dropped 2 to 3 drops of that essential oil straight into the wound and let it go around the wound as well. And then we obviously banded it quite tightly and let him keep his thumb in the air so that the blood could slow down. But what the Helichrysum actually does is it assists and supports the process to not bleed as much, right? And because of the very high antibacterial properties, specifically against the opportunistic pathogens that you would get around a wound like that is going to cause a severe infection, it supports that as well. So within, I think about, it was quite deep, guys. I wish I took a photo, but he wouldn't, he's standing there and the blood is gushing out. It's like not going to stand and wait for me to take a photograph and then only start putting the Helichrysum and the bandage on, right? So basically, we put that on, and within about, I'd say 4 to 5 days, the wound had sealed enough on the inside for him to be able to start opening the wound on a daily basis to let it air. So yes, we did still close it because he was still working very roughly with his hands, but definitely healed or supported the healing of the tissue itself a lot sooner than it would have, for example, had you not put the Helichrysum on there. So really good in a sense for all kinds of things skin related. So there's a reason why Helichrysum is in a lot of beauty products, and I would like to suggest to all of you that if you are not already using a natural organic sort of skin regime, to switch, because then we can decrease the toxins, which is really amazing. And if you can add something like Helichrysum to your skincare, it's going to be really beneficial. So you can either do something like add 2 drops to your dollop of moisturizer in the morning before you apply it to your face. I just like putting Helichrysum because I make my own homemade moisturizer. I just like putting Helichrysum in there always. So I usually switch up the essential oils that I put into that specific batch of face cream, but it's always got Helichrysum in there, always, because of the cell regenerating support that it provides. So anything wrinkly, liney, skin discoloration-y, all those kind of imperfections that we are going to get with age, let's face it, we are not going to be everlasting. But if you are inclined to not go the toxin route and do all the cutting and the injecting and all the other kinds of things that a lot of people like to do, I don't, but if you are wanting to go the more natural route, then things like Helichrysum are really going to be incredibly supportive to your skin. So even things thinking about the circulatory and the blood and all those kind of things, all the things that make Tanya squeamish, all of those get support from Helichrysum. So scarring, wounds, even a nosebleed, bruising, walking into a bed too many times, those kind of things are going to be really supported by using something like Helichrysum. Also, because it's got really good anti-inflammatory properties, if you've got some kind of minor skin irritation, for example, and there's inflammation that's carrying on there, then Helichrysum can be used topically. Just always dilute them quite nicely, because if the skin barrier has already been broken, Helichrysum can be used on open skin, but if you're going to be using it for quite some time, then over a long period of time, then obviously adding a little bit of carrier oil is a really good idea. And if you're going to be doing it on your face, it's good. Your skin, organic skincare is going to be fantastic for that. But if you do want to make a serum, for example, then you can use something like jojoba. Really good for your facial skin. All right, so I talked about the veins around the knee area, the upper leg area. There's a really good recipe for that. which you can add essential oils together that can improve the appearance. But also for those of you that have picked up weight and lost weight and you've got those little zigzags going on the side of your tummy, or pregnant, gave birth, maybe there's someone on here today that has had like 7 kids and really needs to support some zigzags on their tummy area. I've got a really nice blend for that I found in one of my really good resources as well. So if you do want to have that sort of zigzag blend, just write in the comments for me zigzag. It's when the skin stretches and it loses its elasticity, and that's when it obviously not so good, right? And then there's actually, let's get into the science of that elasticity thing, okay? Because I think the science behind this really fascinates me. And I know the live is really long today, but this is a beautiful essential oil and it does so many beautiful things to our skin. So the reason when we age, when we lose elasticity and we start getting the fine lines and the wrinkles, there's basically 2 enzymes that cause that. And it's the collagenase and the elastase in our skin. So they actually start breaking down proteins, all right? So the matrix is not that great. And what Helichrysum does, scientifically, they've done some studies on some of these cells, and what it does is that it sort of halts or it slows down those enzymes. And that's why it is so incredibly beneficial in using on the skin, which is amazing if you think, hey? So that's the science behind why this Helichrysum works so well for the skin. There's a lot of people that also have a kind of tenderness in their ears, or sometimes it develops into some kind of ringing sensation, usually caused by some kind of inflammatory condition. Helichrysum has been shown to be quite supportive for that as well, and you can simply just put a drop around the ear with some carrier oil, never inside the ear. Very sensitive, very bad idea to put it inside, don't do that. And because of the properties of the Helichrysum with the respiratory tract, it's obviously a really good one to have in a diffuser as well. Personally, I wouldn't put it in my diffuser. I would prefer to make a rollerball bottle and then probably just put it around the sinus areas here when you are trying to support some kind of congestion going on. Really good, by the way, for detoxing specific organs like the liver and heavy metal toxicity. So for example, combining with Helichrysum and a very well-known essential oil, cilantro, so that's the leafy part of the coriander plant. Those 2 are incredibly good for heavy metal detoxification support. So combining those 2 essential oils together in a roller bottle and applying it over the liver area is a really good and supportive idea. And if we then start to think about things, again, skin related, earlier in the week I posted a nice recipe for a razor bump serum. I'm going to give you a top tip. I actually use that serum and I apply it to my legs before I shave. So I put on the serum, just 2 or 3 squirts out of the spray bottle, the glass spray bottle that I've made, and I apply that to my legs because it's sort of a protective layer. And then I apply a sort of a natural organic washing solution or blend, soap without all the very hectic nasty chemicals in there. I apply that to my legs and it gives me a really smooth shave, no bumps, none at all, no skin irritation. And then sometimes if I'm feeling really luxurious and I want to practice some self-care, then I apply some of that serum onto my legs afterwards again as well. So I just want to go through all here what I wanted to write down in my notes and just make very sure. Yes, there we go. I did talk about everything. I talked about the curry smell. That's probably why Jerry doesn't like Helichrysum. She's one of my very good friends. She's not so in favor of the Helichrysum smell, and it's because of those ketones that are in there. I talked about the fact that it can support the liver for the heavy metals, for example, and really good for the skin support. Okay, and then the last thing, emotionally, it is really supportive for when you're feeling wounded. So it's helping you to release the negative emotions that comes from feeling wounded. So again, one of those oils that works all around. So topically, aromatically, as well as internally. You can use it internally. I wouldn't do it very often. Obviously, it's going to be a very expensive exercise or regime. But definitely a good essential oil to have in your first aid kit at home. The reason we call it liquid stitches is because you can put it around and inside an open wound, and it is really going to support your body to close up that wound really, really quickly. All right, so hope you enjoyed today. The Helichrysum that I have in my growing in my copy outside, please don't come and harvest them. As I said, not all, it's the South African species. Yes, they do have very beneficial supportive effects, but not the ones that I talked about today. The ones I talked about today is unfortunately only from the one coming in the Mediterranean region, the Helichrysum species. So please don't come and harvest my copy. I have a lot of them growing here. So yes, there we go. Cheryl is asking for the video link. I will definitely do that for you, Cheryl. Not a problem. As soon as I've loaded it to YouTube, I will be firing off that link straight to you. Thank you all for joining me again today. So next week, Thursday, although my cat is doing a lot better, I am going to have to take him in for an extensive sonar scan just to make sure of what's going on his insides and how we can support him a little bit more naturally. So if I'm not back from that scan by 12, I will make sure that there's something for you to watch at 12, whether it be a pre-recorded video or something else that I put into my group. There's always going to be something in my group at 12 o'clock on a Thursday, but I might not actually be doing it live next week Thursday, depending on how early I'm able to get my kitty cat home. All right, so thank you so much. I will see you all soon. Cheerio. Bye.